Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Government House. As we start, could I please ask that you put your mobile phones to silent? The session is being streamed on Facebook and will be available later on the Governor's website, should you wish to view it again. And there will, of course, be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the session. Can I also start by thanking you for walking the long way around? The works out the front are to provide mobility access through the main entrance of Government House. You've come through the original entrance from 1840, and that is the, as you would have seen by the ramp, where people with wheelchairs, for example, have to go. Her Excellency Mr Bunton believed that Government House should be a house for all South Australians, and that presupposes that everyone should be able to come through the front door. Given the age of the building and the heritage considerations, it's a bigger job than usual. That's what's happening out the front. Within about 6 weeks, people in wheelchairs or with other mobility challenges will be able to come through the front door. Thank you very much for bearing with us. Today, in contributing to the public discourse on issues that help to create a strong and dynamic community, we're exploring the topic of entrepreneurs in South Australia. And Her Excellency is in conversation with Eloise Hall, the co-founder of Taboo Period Products, and Ben Colley, General Manager of Stone and Chalk, a startup and innovation at Lot 14. Together with Isabel Marshall, Eloise founded Taboo Period Products, an Adelaide-based social enterprise selling organic and ethically sourced period products, with all the company profits committed to ending period poverty. She is personally committed to making long-lasting structural changes to bridge the inequality that exists in our communities. She has received several awards for her work, including the Advertiser's Woman of the Year Rising Star Award and In Daily's 40 Under 40. She has also served on several advisory boards, including the Adelaide Economic Development Agency. Ben is an Australian technologist with experience in the development of innovative products, teams and companies at their startups to scale-up stage. Two of these include TeamGauge, an AI-powered platform for employee feedback and insights, and Blue Dot, which helps businesses connect with customers at the perfect moment through their phone, automating messages, payments and other place-based interactions. He's also worked as a scout for venture capitalists and as an angel investor. He joined Stone & Chalk as its General Manager for South Australia in 2025. Please welcome Her Excellency and our guests.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think the weather's looked after the winter part of this, and we're about to have a really good conversation. I'm going to have a chat to Eloise and Ben, but really not for more than half the time, so I want to share as much of this opportunity with you as possible. I'm going to start in the way I always do on Kaurna country, with an acknowledgement in language. Kaurna, Bogana Aida, Kaurna Miana Aida, Yaichi Miana Aida, Kumatana, Yatananku. Ngātuna Tampandi, Kaurna Miana, Yaichi Yatamatana, Pukininanku, Yalaka, Takaricha. I acknowledge and pay my respects to all Aboriginal people here today, whether from Kaurna country or other lands and regions, and I acknowledge the Kaurna as the traditional custodians from the past, today, and into the future. Right, well, let's get underway, but I'm very grateful indeed to Eloise and Ben for being willing to be part of this. Both being entrepreneurial, I knew they would say yes as soon as I asked, but they still should be thanked for that. And I suppose now, well into my fourth year as Governor, I've had the privilege, along with Rod, of getting some real first-hand insights into South Australia's areas of innovation and entrepreneurship, and whether that's been through Lot 14 just up the road, or the biomedical precinct just down the road, or over in Tonsley or out at Mawson Lakes, or meeting these amazing 40 under 40s, Solstice Media. Not everyone in the room may know about 40 under 40s, but Eloise and Ben, you're welcome to talk about it as well too. But also through our school visits, Rod and I have been to, I think, all 4 now high schools which specialise in and encourage entrepreneurship. And although today is a pupil-free day in the state school system, and that means there are no pupils to be seen, we're very pleased today to have some students from 3 schools, I think, with us. And I hope everyone will bear with me. My inclination when we get to questions will be to look in their direction first, and we'll see how all of that goes. But I see quite a lot of it, but understanding it, and I've been to Stone and Chalk a number of times with Rod, and you've been good enough to set up round tables where we've met amazing young people doing absolutely brilliant things. And when I see something brilliant, I want to share it. So I know there's been strong government support, a collaborative startup community, but you're the ones who've actually been making it happen. And I think we're keen to know, to start with, we should say, well, so what does it take to be an entrepreneur, and how well is South Australia actually placed to support entrepreneurs? So it's always good to start with a personal story. So Ben, I might start with you. What drew you to being an entrepreneur? What does it involve in simple terms? We'll just build a foundation and then we'll build something bigger on top of it. It's quite fashionable in some respects, that word. It's a good thing. It's got all the positives around it, but is it misunderstood?
So maybe I'll start with, I have never founded a company, so I don't actually consider myself an entrepreneur. I'm entrepreneurial, and I've spent the last almost 15 years working side by side with entrepreneurs and with founders, and I'm addicted to it. But they're deeply unique people. I was with a couple of the founders just this morning, and I asked them what it means to be an entrepreneur, or what you need to have. Scott was one of them. He's the founder of something called ZapMe. His first...
Sounds painful.
His first comment was, you need to be resilient. Yeah. And I asked another gentleman, and he said you need to be flexible. And I think that's very true. But my version is you need to be unreasonable.
Yeah.
Unreasonable in your belief of who you are and the dent you want to make in the world. Unreasonable in how the world should be. Unreasonable in that you deserve the capital from the investor that you're pitching. Unreasonable in the story that you're telling to the employee to join you early on, who can almost definitely get more money somewhere else. You can't pay them what they're worth, but you believe they should be part of the story and part of the mission. And you need to be just unreasonable, because all you're going to hear is no, this won't work. So that's what I think it takes.
Okay, well, that's a very good sort of general look at it. From my observation to entrepreneurs I've met here in South Australia, incredibly hardworking and determined, and it sounds to me a bit as if they're unreasonable with themselves in that regard. But let's put that to one side. And Eloise, you have founded a company. How did Taboo first begin? Some people in the audience will know, but how is being a social entrepreneur different from other forms of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, thank you, Your Excellency. Great question. I think social entrepreneurship is a little misunderstood sometimes, but I will always say yes to the opportunity to explain it and give some examples. So the journey of Taboo, which is the social enterprise I run, started in high school. So myself and my co-founder Izzy were at a fantastic school, Wolford, and I can see our old head of high school with us here. So yeah, it was an amazing kind of environment where we were introduced to the concept of social enterprise. And I have always been really challenged by the wealth divide that we have in this very wealthy country, a country with great opportunity, but there is this really extreme divide of wealth, and unfortunately a divide in opportunity in, there's a postcode lottery. It depends on which circumstance you're born into as to what opportunities you might attain. And I can understand that a lot of big business kind of fuels this wealth divide. And social enterprise for us was this incredible tool where we were actually taking this opportunity of trade and consumerism to make a positive impact. And for us, that was the development of Taboo, which is a line and a range of certified organic cotton period products that are plastic free. So we were quite conscious that we needed an environmental consideration on the actual product we were selling. So we're selling pads and tampons in retail stores, online, and direct to businesses and organisations. And our profits are funding menstrual health and hygiene programs where people who can't afford to buy period products and therefore are missing out on school or using things like sponges and cloth to manage their menstrual cycles and consequently developing really extreme hygiene and illnesses, we are providing free product to people who are not able to access that product, and menstrual health education and a lot of stigma-breaking campaigns and social change that comes along with that. And so, yeah, it was an idea born from high school, and we kind of said yes to the opportunities that came through, and it's been a really beautiful snowball effect that we've kind of found.
Well, actually, a snowball effect, that leads me really into my next question of both of you, but if you could continue, Eloise, that'd be great. Obviously, there are twists and turns in I mean, any entrepreneur would tell you that, but has there ever been a time when you seriously felt this is not going to work, I'm just going to have to give up and do something else? Have you had that moment? And Ben, you can think about either your own related moment or of those you've worked alongside, how have they coped with that?
Yeah, thank you. There are, I think, an endless amount of those moments with any journey for entrepreneurs, but social entrepreneurs perhaps particularly. Social enterprise somewhat falls in between in that grey area of typical businesses, which maybe Ben is more familiar with, the venture capital pursuit and finding that kind of traditional trajectory of starting a business. And social enterprises also don't fit into the typical design of a charity initiative. So we're not knocking on the doors of philanthropists in early days. We're trying to do both. we're trying to scale a company that has commercial credibility and a large grip on the market and create an impact. So I think it's quite a hard job, and we've found a lot of challenges in that direction. One just being people understanding the model and understanding that this can work and that social enterprise is a really effective tool. And thankfully, in the last 8 years, Taboo's been around for that long, we've seen that develop. But yeah, I think, with that, for one example, might be with retail. Retail is really hard to crack into. The margins are so slim, and that's been a real big challenge as a fast-moving consumable goods brand. You need a lot of scale. You need to sell a lot of product to make an impact. So to have kind of the cash flow and the commitment to get there has been a challenge. But as the social enterprise sector has evolved, things like impact investment has also become more accessible. So that's been a really beautiful shift to feel.
Ben, how about you?
Yeah, it's...
Big challenge,
No, I mean, the most recent big one that everyone experienced, but if you were an entrepreneur, it was COVID.
Yeah.
And I was part of a team where we were split between Melbourne and San Francisco. So we had product and engineering teams writing lines of code and building our product in Australia and in Melbourne, and our go-to-market, so where we were selling to customers and marketing, was in the US. And we had 2 offices, and we had about 40 staff. And then we had opened our 3rd office in Austin, Texas on about the 20th of February. And signed people on contracts. And if you know anything about the US, your employment also means your healthcare, and your healthcare for you and your family, whoever that may be. And as an Australian-founded company, the 2 co-founders, we had a particular approach to the healthcare that we offered. From the Americans' point of view, it was incredibly generous, and we were just like, this is what you would offer. But come the 8th of March, we shut all the offices, and it was obviously, like many of us, it was like, we'll see you in a week or 2. We're not really sure what's happening, but we'll close these offices, send everyone home. And then that kind of rolled on, and then it got to the point of actually, these people that we've just hired, we can't make their payroll. And the reality is that they are within a probation period, and so it is technically easy to move them on. But there's a human cost to that. And particularly in the US, with those US employees, not only are you firing them, you're now cutting off their healthcare to them and their kids. And that was Like, I feel that now thinking about it. And the reality is, sitting with the founders, is just like, we have to do this, because if we don't, the whole thing goes under. Every employee doesn't get payroll. But like, that is a brutal reality. And COVID was a big example of that. But making payroll, for most people, and like my friends who are not in sort of startup land, you get it stressed at work, and you get annoyed, and you might get frustrated and all these things, but you don't really ever think, I won't get paid. And in startup land, at least from my experience, like, that just becomes normal.
Yeah.
It's just like, maybe we won't get paid next week, next month, because we didn't secure that investment, or the big customer pulled out, or whatever it may be. And that becomes a bit normalised, which isn't necessarily healthy.
On that very point, or related to it, we've got a family friend, young adult kids, a bit like us. One of them is getting into venture capital. His company receives hundreds and hundreds, thousands of applications from people with brilliant ideas wanting them funded. And they use a whole range of means to sift them, including, no doubt, these days AI, and we might get to AI at some point. But they say the biggest predictor of whether someone's going to be successful in one of those ventures is having previously failed. Now, do you agree with that?
Yes.
Does that match and explain, because it's a bit counterintuitive. Often when Rod and I are in schools, we talk about, life's not just about successes, it's about being willing to fail. Often we say fail quickly and then move in a different direction, but you learn from that and you're able to talk about it. But for entrepreneurs, obviously, it can be an idea, something that's possibly before its time, something that crashes and burns, and yet they've then got the knowledge from that to go on and do something else, which in an ideal world makes them hugely successful.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I would agree. I was actually speaking to a board member this morning about a failure of mine, which was we tried really hard. I spent 14 months applying for a tender that the Victorian government was putting out for period product provision, and it was a grueling process. I hate to calculate how many hours were spent on that. And one of the learnings, we were unfortunately not successful. We got to the very final position and didn't quite get there. And one of the learnings was I needed to prioritise our day-to-day whilst taking that opportunity. With the opportunity, it had a lot of hope and a lot of promise. There was a social procurement framework. There were a lot of reasons why we should have done that investment in time. But yeah, I absolutely learnt from that. In I need to focus on that day-to-day and think about these opportunities with more realism, pulled into them. And I think that's maybe a characteristic of an entrepreneur, is that chase of hope, and you have to kind of emphasise that opportunity bigger than it is, to have the ambition to chase those opportunities. But you also can't forget that there's the business to run at the same time. So yeah.
Thanks, Eloise. Ben?
Yeah, I mean, yes, of course. Failure is like, there's a connotation to the word failure, and I think particularly as Australians and South Australians, that has a particular negative connotation. And that's not a bad thing. Actually, no, I think it's not a good thing. Failure is just like how you learn. It's like if most people here probably learn to ride a bike. You're teaching a little kid. Like, you don't tell them they've failed when they fell off. It's just like how you learn to ride a bike. And you can have all the theory in the world of how to ride a bike. The only real way to learn is to do it and fall off and then get back on and do it again. And you correct, and then you figure out the balance of like how a bike works. And I think that principle stands true for everything in life, and especially true when you're founding a company or an organisation. Is just like, you try something, it doesn't work. One version of that is it failed. The other version is, okay, I learned what not to do, or what to do and how to do it slightly differently, and then you go again. And there's certainly a scale, and there's also a reality that when the things fail, when a company fails, it has a bigger wake behind it of
Yep.
impact. There might be employees, investors,
Yep.
customers, all of those things. So not to discount that, but completely true. It's like that founder, ideally, they go again,
Yep.
and whatever they learnt over the preceding 3 or 4 or 5 years, well, that gets condensed maybe and applied in the next 12 months, and they don't make those mistakes, and now they can go further and they can go faster.
Yep.
And if I could add as well, I think there's practice to that, and failure is something that you really need to learn to embrace. And I think as well, resilience is a really important, and I think it's quite obvious, a really important kind of value that you have to hold on to and be good at as an entrepreneur. And learning to fail well, and learning to fail with a smile on your face, and understanding that actually, you know, of course I failed. I didn't know, that was my first time. I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm here to learn, and I think that's something that I've really valued focusing on lately, is failing well, failing with a smile, being able to laugh at yourself, and also being able to take your ego out of that. That's so important. Once your ego is out of the way, then you can actually think about things with a little more clarity and a little more direction, and maybe a little less seriousness. You're meant to have fun along the journey, and that's how you bring people with you as well.
Totally agree.
Now, Ben, you've got a T-shirt that says Stone and Chalk.
Yep.
You've just taken over as General Manager. Not everyone in the room will have the remotest idea about what Stone and Chalk does. What do you actually do, and what are the
Yep.
main ways that you help support South Australia's entrepreneurs? Quick
Okay.
burst.
Stone and Chalk is the largest and longest running innovation community in Australia. We have been around, we're actually having our 10-year anniversary this year. Over that 10 years, we have helped more than 500 startups. They have directly or indirectly gone on to employ more than 100,000 Australians. And they have raised nearly $4 billion in capital. It's not all about the money, but there's just also a reality that is part of the way you kind of, it's a big number to call out. So what we actually do, we're a non-for-profit organisation, and we provide a home for founders and their teams. We provide this home so that they can go further, faster. Practically what that looks like is they rent a desk from us or a small office space, and we have a community that they're then a part of. But we are not a co-working space. I view it as we are a pipeline. You join us at the beginning, you can't have a sketch on a napkin, but you can be pre-revenue or pre-product. If you know what that means, this might be the right place for you to come down and see me. You join at the beginning, and we wrap our arms around you, and we help you with everything and anything you could need. We help you connect with investors to raise capital, to find customers, to find employees, to find partners, to be your counsellor when things are not going well. That community aspect is fundamental. Here in South Australia, we're particularly unique in the way we partner with the government. So as I said, we're a non-for-profit, but in South Australia, the way I articulate it, and there's a couple of government people in the crowd who I haven't tested this yet with, but let's see what we think. We're the execution partner of the state government's innovation policy at a grassroots level. So at the very beginning of where innovation happens, that's where we exist to help. We are down at Lot 14. We have a building down there. It's called the Startup Hub. We have 185 people in the building across 56 companies. They are doing anything and everything in innovation startup land, technology, future industries, from space, social enterprise, the future of the energy market and energy grids, social networks for families that have children with disabilities, AI, obviously a hot topic that we'll get into. And yeah, that is the place where they begin, and we help them to be successful, and we're on a mission to change the economic complexity of this state, and that's the platform to do it from.
Okay. Eloise, you started in South Australia, obviously. I mean, you were at school, it all flowed out of that. Do you have any sense at all, though, of starting up in South Australia, particularly as a young person, compared to, say, the eastern states? Have you ever thought, actually, I have to leave, or are you totally happy here and would encourage everybody else to do the same.
Yeah, I think South Australia is certainly unique, and I think there are huge strengths to the environment to start a business. To speak for our experience, when we started, we have this outrageous ambition, this very clear vision, and absolutely no training, skill, or experience. I was very much committed to drama and art and music at school. Isabel was studying, she's now a doctor, so she was very focused on sciences and maths at school. And then we developed this idea and want to start a business. We were really grateful to have a few early mentors around us. One in particular was a friend of ours, father. He got coffee with us, he sat us down and then maybe gave us some names of other people to meet. And the advice that we got early on was just go get coffee with everyone and ask them all your questions. Even if you don't have a specific agenda or you don't even know their skill set that well, get coffee with them and hear what they have to say. And that kind of encouragement of building our network was something that I am continuously reflecting on as the most valuable piece of advice we ever had. I have people in my network who I work with frequently that I got coffee with when I was 17 with this, crazy idea. And Adelaide is really exceptional for that. It's well connected, and sometimes that can feel a little claustrophobic, I think, for young people in particular. But if you're starting a business, it's a huge asset. I think the quality of advice you can access and the quality of experience that is around us is probably world-renowned. And I think it's an amazing foundation to establish yourself. And then, there's obviously things to learn from around the world and interstate. But yeah, I think in an environmental context, it's a really special, unique environment to start with. We've certainly found the value. And I think if we started on the East Coast, maybe we would have been a little lost in the noise. I don't know, that's not our experience, and I can't read, the fork in the road and where that would have gone, but I certainly feel that we had kind of a step up here.
Thank you. Ben, views on that? I mean, you can be an entrepreneur everywhere, obviously,
Yeah.
and the world needs entrepreneurs, but what's the South Australian sort of take on this, do you think?
I mean, I think right now we have I agree with everything that Eloise just said, the power of your network, and I think that sometimes sounds a bit almost like elitist or something, but it's just the people you know who can help you. The more people you know, the more people who can help you. And South Australia is relatively easy to navigate. So completely agree with that. That is a massive asset. I did leave. I left for 8 years. I went and lived in Melbourne, and I was lucky enough with one of the companies I was a part of to spend some time in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, and that fundamentally changed how I think about building teams, culture, and companies. So I wouldn't have got that if I'd stayed here. I wouldn't have got that if I'd stayed in Australia, because there's a reality that I have 2 young girls, I have 2 little kids. I don't want to raise them in the US. I have no desire to go back. I love being here in Adelaide now. But the mindset of somewhere like Silicon Valley is it is different. And you feel it, being in a room where everyone is delusional enough to think they're going to change the world. You can't help but feel that. And so that was really, really important. I had a phone call literally yesterday with a gentleman who I met there, and he worked at Atlassian actually, but he was from California and he moved to Australia to be a part of Atlassian's story early on. But I just happened to meet him at an event, and we've remained friends ever since. And yeah, so that different mindset and that different approach is sometimes you can only get when you leave. But it's great to be able to then bring it back and bring it with you to what is home and will always be home.
Now, I said we were going to allow half the time for questions, and we're almost there. But because we've got some secondary and university students in the room, I just wondered if you could both quickly say, if they've got a business idea that they want to pursue now or in future, what advice would you give them? Eloise?
I might pass on some advice that my dad gave me when
Sure.
I started Tuvu, when Izzy and I started. I got some pretty good grades at school, and we had this idea, and I was pretty committed to, Izzy and I are going to take the gap year and we're going to invest in this business. And some of the advice he gave me was, well, you've got great grades, just go and get a good degree and get a great job, and then when you've got a great job, you can then make an impact. And in theory, absolutely, he's right. And he is an entrepreneur himself and has run a small business for forever. And I think he knows how hard it is, and that was his advice was, it's hard. It's probably easier if you get a great job and you're going to be a bit more comfortable, and things are going to maybe fall into your lap a little easier. And then I didn't listen to him. I said, okay, yep, and then did what I wanted anyway. And I think maybe about 6 months in, perhaps we were presenting at something, or there was one small win on the chalkboard, and he came up to me and he said, you know what, kiddo, well done. I think you've made a good choice, and you're right. If you fail, you can just stand back up and dust your shoulders off and start again. And I think he had this kind of understanding of the youth that was an asset that I had at the time. And I think that perspective was really valuable, because I thought, yeah, it's true. And I think it was probably timely that I heard that advice too, of oh, it's actually okay if this fails, because I am learning a lot. And if it fails, that is also fine. I'm going to bring that learning into this next opportunity. And I think to deepen that story, sometimes I think about the depth of knowledge that I've been able to build on in this 8 years of experience, and I think I could not have asked for a better opportunity to learn these lessons. The value that learning and experience itself has brought, no matter how dire my bank account has been over the years, it's a huge asset to, I know, that will serve me in the future. So my advice would just to be, take the risk and go for it and chase those ideas and learn and be okay with failing, and you're going to have to, nurse the grazes on your knees at times, and that's life, and it's a beautiful lesson to be able to do that. So yeah, and we need great solutions, and we need entrepreneurs. So yeah,
there are
please
lots
fill
of
that gap.
problems around.
Yes, exactly.
Ben, is there anything you want to add to that? Specifically, I'm thinking about this group here.
Students, so I have a couple of things. Default to yes. Say yes to everything in the context of business. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. We can all think of things that might not be wise to, but yes, that's...
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
I say yes to opportunity.
Say yes to opportunity, great. But yeah, just say yes. Meet the person, try the idea, help a friend, whatever it is. Default to yes. So many people don't. They default to no, or they default to thinking about what could go wrong. At your age, default to yes, try things, meet as many people as you can, as we sort of discussed, and move fast. That's do it quickly, because that will compound. You're so young. I still consider myself relatively young. I'm not relatively young, but you're young.
Well, it's all relative.
Yeah. But if you say yes, if you default to yes, if you try things and you do it quickly, you're just going to experience so many things so quickly, and you'll figure out what you like doing and what you don't like doing. And both of them are awesome. And so I think that's true of your business idea, and trying to figure out how to make it work, whatever it may be. But maybe that you could apply that to your job, your studies, whatever you want to do. And then the second thing I'll say is, because I'm sitting up here and I'm in tech, it would be remiss of me not to quote Steve Jobs. It's way more fun to be a pirate than join the Navy.
All right. Now, we've got microphones on both sides of the room. So if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. If you think you might like to ask one, just raise your hand. I'd like to know to begin with how many questions we're going to have, and then I'll try and manage them so that we can give everybody a go. Who thinks they might like to ask a question? Well, we've got one hand up. While everybody else is thinking about it, why don't we go to you with your hand up? If you wouldn't mind just saying your name and where you're from, that'll just help give a little bit of context to it. But thanks for being willing to ask the first question.
Yeah, no
I always think we should have some special reward for that, but we don't.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if it's on, but I'll just say I'm Liam from Banksia Park. I have a question for Eloise. Obviously, being an entrepreneur, it's a lot of hard work, dedication, and motivation. Was there ever a point where you lost motivation for being an entrepreneur, and how did you get through that?
Yeah, great question. There has been, and I'm sure there will be more days to come. It is not easy, and it is hard, and that motivation is sometimes something that I've found I have to massage or nurture. I find that even last night is a great example of something that kind of revives me. I was lucky enough to MC Fish Tank, which was essentially Shark Tank for Kids, hosted by the Unley Council.
Well, explain what Shark Tank
Great
and Fish
point.
Tank are. We can all guess, but just explain.
So Shark Tank, I've actually never watched it, but it's a show where people are pitching their $1 million ideas to these sharks who are, I think, venture capitalists or people that are in a position to invest in these ideas. Shark Tank is where young people from Unley Council get up on stage and do these incredible pitches. They've got 3 minutes to pitch their idea and then 2 minutes where judges ask them questions. And the ideas that these young people were presenting were so brilliant. Some could do with a bit of work, but the tenacity and the kind of vision that these young people had was so inspiring. And I think whenever I find myself in that rut of, do we keep going like, oh, this feels a bit hard, I just think, you know what, we do need solutions, and we need people to pull those solutions and bring them to the people, and in us it's in the consumer capability. I also think that whenever I find myself in a bit of a rut of, oh, this feels really hard, it takes a little effort, but I try to reframe that as how lucky am I to have this opportunity to learn as well. So if there's a new skill set that I'm finding really hard, I think how amazing is this opportunity for me to learn this new skill set and refine it. I think it does take a little practice in that mindset shift and that perspective challenge. There's certainly finding inspiration from other people has, been really effective at pulling me out quite quickly. So thanks for your question.
Yeah, thanks, Liam. And Banksia Park is, of course, one of the entrepreneurial high schools that I mentioned before. Sounds to me as if you might be getting in contact with Eloise and asking her for a cup of coffee at some point. But that's just a thought. All right, more questions? I mean, we've had an AI teaser there, but yes, over there on the halfway down. Just wait for the microphone's on its way.
Thanks. My name's Ian Cody, retired, living here. I'm just wondering about the remarkable rise of artificial intelligence in our world, and a question to both of you: how are you utilising, for startups particularly, this remarkable resource?
Ben, I
Great
think
question, Ian.
So I think who here has used AI? Great. Who uses it every week? Who uses it every day?
Wow.
Amazing.
This is quite something, actually.
That is, that's, didn't quite go to plan, but
It's a very entrepreneurial group.
Yeah.
that's awesome. No, I'm genuinely excited to see that. This might not be true, but it also could be true. AI is a massive term and it means lots of different things. And if you speak to people who are technically in AI, they might get frustrated that we're kind of just throwing it around right now. But I think everyone here roughly understands what we mean by AI. ChatGPT is the big one, but there are others. Claude by another organisation called Anthropic would be kind of the competitor. But this could be, where we're at right now could be the same as being in 1997, 1998 using the internet. And think about, the internet today is foundational. Is it more important than electricity? No, but it's up there. Our whole society, community, lives run on top of this. I index towards believing AI is the next evolution of that. This is going to fundamentally change the world. And so I'm deeply excited by that. I use it every day. I mentioned before I have a young daughter, so I have a story I'll tell very quickly. About 3 months ago, maybe, I was cooking dinner. So I have 2 young daughters, sorry, but the oldest is 4.5. I was cooking dinner. I was at the sort of island, chopping up a carrot, and I pay $20 a month for the pro version of ChatGPT, which gives you a feature where you can talk to it, just like we're talking right now, and it responds. And so I had my phone up, so I was supervising. I had my 4-year-old daughter, and she started talking to it. And for 45 minutes, I had finished chopping the carrot, and I was just like, for 45 minutes, she just chatted to this thing. And it was infinitely patient, infinitely curious. It didn't know it's talking to a child, but it also knows. It adjusts its language based on the language of the question that's being asked of it. And just watching that unfold was beautiful. And the one that stood out to me is at one point she said to it, are you a robot? And it goes, no, I'm not a robot. Typically a robot has arms and legs, which is like, you know, not the response I would have given, but the right response for a 4.5-year-old. And she goes, oh, okay, what are you? And he goes, I'm a computer program. She's like, what's a computer program? And ChatGPT just instantaneously goes, well, it's a little bit like when you're cooking and you have a series of steps that you follow, and at the end you get a cake. But in this case, I follow a series of steps, and at the end, I do a job. And she was just like, okay, cool. And then moved on to asking about unicorns and princesses. But it was just like, wow. Imagine if every kid, everywhere, has access to that in their classroom. Yes, they have a teacher. Yes, they have their peers. But they have a personalised tutor that is infinitely patient, infinitely curious.
And that is why the South Australian Certificate of Education Board has embraced AI, and why South Australia is the first state in the country and one of the first places in the world to develop, in consultation with Microsoft, well, it's part of an arrangement with Microsoft, a thing called EdChat.
Love it.
Which is, you know, the within schools version of this. I think it was, I know there are educators in the room, so bear with me if this isn't strictly correct, but I think the early work last year was with 10,000 students, but the idea is that they, within a environment, a cloud that is the Department of Education in South Australia, there are some safeguards set up around this. The curriculum is integrated into it. Students are learning to work with it and to as a tool. You know, we can all remember when we had to do the long division. Well, maybe not everyone can remember when we used to do long division, but we did. And then calculators came along and we didn't have to do long division anymore. We just used the calculator. And then we threw the calculators away because it's all on your phone. And all of this is a progression. But what I'm also hearing, and I know that there are some educators in the room, that this is freeing up lesson planning time for teachers to enable them to spend more face-to-face time engaging with students. Whether that part of it's strictly true or not is the Education Department's line on it. But South Australian students, not every school yet, but are getting opportunities that haven't previously been available. Now, the question though was, how are entrepreneurs making use of that? So let's land that bit of it.
Yeah, I was going to come back to that because I realised I went off on a tangent, which I have a tendency to do. They're integrating in every way. So it's in their core service offering, whatever it may be. And I can give you some practical examples of that. But it's also in like their operations of how they run. So you have a meeting with your team. Some of those team members are online, some are in the room. Everything gets transcribed by AI. No one's taking notes anymore. And I use this every day. Those notes then get automatically distributed. Beautiful transcript, but not just a transcript, a perfect synopsis of the meeting with all of the action items minuted to the actual part of the transcript if you want to go and compare. And that all just is instantaneously done and distributed. And it's just like, I imagine there's thousands of people every day at work that are still taking notes and then writing out action items and emailing around to the various people that were in the meeting. And for the entrepreneurs in our building and for our team, like that just doesn't exist. It's just instant done. They're also obviously integrating it into their products and platforms. I know one team member, he had Alex, he's a founder of something called Lateral Vision. About 2 weeks ago, he was talking to someone about an idea of when you get to an event, you know where the address is and Google Maps gets you there. But if you're at like a convention center, it's like, how do you actually find the entrance? He's like, oh, that's an interesting idea. This was on like a Friday afternoon. He left Stone and Chalk. He got into his car. he turned on ChatGPT, he drove to, I think he was picking up his sister or something. He had a conversation with ChatGPT, hands-free, while driving, wrote a project plan. That then got all written up by GPT, he doesn't do anything. He gets home over the weekend, he reviews the project plan, and he starts writing the code, and there's now some tools called, like Cursor is one example, which is basically an AI agent that helps you write code. It's like do you remember Mr. Clippy? Anyone here? It's like a crazy version of that. He used that to write the code. By the end of the week, he'd built the product. Sorry, the end of the weekend, he'd built the product, turned on the website, and deployed the code for an idea that he'd had Friday afternoon with someone over drinks. That is now fully operational. And then he was telling me during the week, he had his friend come in and do user testing on it. So step through this product, bugs here, this doesn't quite make sense, wrote all the notes down of like how it could be better or where it's not working, got those notes and uploaded it into Cursor, which is the name of this product, and just hit fix this. And it goes, and it just fixed it. He didn't do anything. And it's just like, that is wild. There's some scary parts to that, which I don't want to dismiss.
We will do the scary parts in another conversation.
But that's amazing. That's how they're using AI.
Yeah.
You're welcome to add, but can I
Yeah.
just check, there should be more questions. Normally we get loads and loads of questions, but it could be that you just really like listening to these two. And that's all right too. So Eloise, why don't you, by all means, give us your perspective on that, and I'll look around the room for anyone wanting to ask a question.
Great. The only thing I would add to that is some advice I was given about AI. I was told to use ChatGPT like an overconfident intern. So you essentially give them all the tasks that you don't want to do, but you check their work because they're going to pepper it with some confidence that is far beyond their pay grade or their understanding. So that's kind of how I use AI to answer that question. And I think as well, there's value that I love about that administration. Like I think even the note taking, writing notes sometimes, I think if you're kind of a visionary person, that's where ideas can sit. So, I certainly use it where it's helpful, and I think having a small team, there are lots of administrative tasks that it can do and assist with that are really helpful. But I think when you're solving problems and making this idea that you referenced, then that came over drinks with a friend. And I think, that's where the golden nuggets is in that community connection and in understanding issues in a really deep way, which way AI, I don't think, and maybe naively so, will ever have that depth of understanding. And it's innately human to come up with solutions for problems that just won't sit.
Right, I can see there's a difference of view here, which we're not going to explore on that. Now, there's a question right up the back, and then there's another one there, and then there's another one here. I think we're going to say probably those three, unless they're really quick. If there are, we'll go to the fourth, but up the back there.
Good afternoon. Myself, Priya Sharma. I'm pursuing Bachelor of Information Technology at University of South Australia. So my question is, sometimes when you start a business, let's say you cannot afford it to fail. Did you have this vision, or you had a backup plan that it's okay if it failed? I have this thing settled out. Because sometimes you can't afford to fail, be it expenses, be it your children, be it your other obligations, or be it the society. What was in your mind? Did you have a backup plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. For context, I started Taboo with Izzy straight after high school, and maybe I had the luxury and the asset of a lot of energy, perhaps, thinking back. So I was able to study university, start Taboo unpaid, and then also work in hospitality. So to pay my rent and my bills, that's where hospitality came into, and I was really grateful for a boss who was flexible with my hours every week, and I'd request more and he'd be very generous. So that's how I kind of practically paid my way through life. We didn't draw a wage from Taboo for 4.5, nearly 5 years. So yeah, I think there's a huge value specifically in social entrepreneurship in the capability and passion of volunteers. We certainly didn't do it alone. We had a lot of people come on board with our vision and mission and invest their time. Backup plans are probably really sensible. And maybe it's something I should give more thought to. And I think, there's certainly a safety net that I found in South Australia, knowing that if it does fail, I can just probably get a job from someone else, and that's a privilege that I'm really grateful to be able to access. And I think, you know, thanks to the experience I've developed with Plan A, has enabled Plan B to look a little more secure. So yeah, I'm not sure that that's an explicit answer to that question, but maybe just an insight into how we made it happen.
Thank you. Now, next question just here.
My name's Fletcher. I'm from Banksia Park High School. I have my own small business, and I was just wondering, is it better to save up a lot of money to help it running, or try and get investors early on?
Well, Fletcher, that's a pretty good question, actually, if you're thinking about both those options. Ben?
Like, the realistic answer to that is only you can answer that. It's like, what do you want? Because investors can be great. They give you capital to pursue things, but you have to give up part of your company. And so, like, do you want to do that? Do you want to, you're also accountable to them to some degree. You also now, a lot of entrepreneurs start things so that they don't have to answer to anyone. They're their own boss, whether they explicitly realize that's why they're doing it or not. But now you are kind of accountable to someone, and they'll want to know how their money is being used, and you have a responsibility to tell them how you're using their money. So, like, do you want to do that? I would suggest that, and again, only you can answer this, but one of the best ways to grow your company is, like, get your customer to pay you money. That's a great way. It's, like, obviously very flippant, but, like, it's also like they're the best investors. Like, if you really solve a problem for them, or you help them with something, or you unlock an opportunity for them and they're going to give you money, like, just do way more of that. That's kind of where I'd try to start.
If I could just add to that really quickly as well, our kind of proof of concept was a crowdfunding campaign. So I think there's definitely niche to the type of product you're selling. But for us, we thought, okay, well, if people want this to work, then they'll support it to happen. So we did a 2-month fundraising campaign, essentially, where people were pre-purchasing our product. And we raised $56,000 in 2 months, and that was enough to buy our first container worth of period products. And I think having 56 grand of other people's money in your hand, you think, oh, okay, there's a vote of confidence. Maybe people will buy this when we launch. So yeah, we didn't make any savings. I was working at a pub, I couldn't do that. And we didn't take on investment. We did a kind of, you know, here's our market. If you want it to happen, we'll get it through. So,
Love it.
There's lots of ways. Yeah.
Okay, then we've got a question here in the front row. And if there's time, one more there, but I know Hugh will need a few minutes at the end, and we always finish on time.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Serafina. This is a question directly for Ben, but Eloise, maybe through your travels with the Westpac Foundation as well. I had the privilege of living in the US for 14 years, New York, LA and San Francisco, and really resonated with what you said around that culture of being unreasonable, vision and so on. And it's been beautiful being back home in Adelaide as well the last few years. What would you say are the key elements to continue growing South Australia's innovation ecosystem that you learnt from US side, but also your travels through Europe as well during those that study time? That would be really interesting. Just tweaks that we can help grow and scale.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. The one that immediately comes to mind is I went to this. Effectively, we'd taken some capital from an investor, and she was an executive at Facebook. She'd left. Obviously cashed in her stock options, but she set up this investment fund to give other companies some capital to help them grow. And so she had this little networking night, and there was about 40 people in the room at her house. And I went along, and I had never seen anything like it. It was a little like fireside chat with some people who were talking about their experience, and they were all very experienced. But then the room switched to networking mode, and it was just like I was a deer in headlights. It's like the bell rings and they go, and everyone comes up to you, and she was orchestrating all of this, but they're like, who are you? What are you doing? What do you need? And as an Australian, that's a bit like abrupt, but it was like, I'm doing this, I need money, or I need customers, or I need employees, and they're like, cool. And they get their phone out then and there, and they go, done. And then I'm like, I can't help you. I'm Australian. I'm not from here. I don't know anyone. I've never been here before. And they're like, cool. And they're like, lovely to meet you. Move on. And there's a sense where you can interpret that as like, that was rude, it was aggressive, but it was so effective. It was what everyone wanted to happen because we're all there to get something out of it, and not in a bad way, but like we all have these problems and hopefully these people can help. And then the way they help, just the speed, the velocity. And it's just like, yeah, like I said, I was deer in headlights, but watching that play out over a room of 40 people, it's like within half an hour, there's hundreds of new connections that have been made. And it's this idea of like, of course, the way I think humans are kind of like wired, when you help someone, they're a little bit indebted to you. And that's okay, like that's kind of how it works. And you can spin that as like a negative thing, or you can just spin that that's how we're wired. And all of these people just wanted to help, and I'm sure they want me to help them at some point in the future when I can, but like if I can't help them right then and there, that's okay. And so I think that's something that I'm a big believer in trying to practice, and I would love to see more of, is like, just see how you can help people. And if you can, don't wait till you get back to the office. Don't wait till next week. Don't put it on your to-do list. Just do it then. It's really easy to like share a phone number, send a LinkedIn message, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Just do it. Right, Eloise.
I'd love to add to this. Thank you for your question, Serafina. One thing that's really exciting me at the moment is the opportunity we have for social procurement measurement and framework. So to break that down, we have social enterprises all across the world who are selling brilliant quality products, brilliant quality services, and are bringing that opportunity into communities and people who need support or have historically been overlooked. So for example, we have a social enterprise in South Australia called GoGo. They've got the GoGo Foundation and GoGo Events. They are an events company. They support with the bouquets and all of the elements that you need in an event to run well. And they're supporting women who are experiencing some kind of disadvantage to access employment. And that is such a practical way for them to access high quality employment in a supportive environment that's meaningful, and in an economic perspective as well, relieves pressure from the government to support these people who would typically be unemployed. So that's one example of a social enterprise that we could involve ourselves with deeper. And one thing that I've seen happening around the world in a really high quality way is making social procurement expectations in a government context and a workplace context. Practically, that will transform our community really quickly, because social enterprises are experts on the people that they're supporting and also experts on the product and offering they're supplying. And so to see that shift in social procurement expectations is a really brilliant first step for policy to influence outcome, and it's going to save us a lot of money. I often say that the social enterprise sector is doing the government's job, and if we can work together, that will be even more effective. So I'm excited to see that happen, and I hope to meet with anyone from state government if you're interested. Love to share more learnings.
Right. That's great. Thank you both. I'm going to hand back to Hugh now, because he's got a couple of things that he'll want to say just to round out. I note the sun's shining after what sounded like heavy rain earlier on, but a particular thank you from me to both of you for your enthusiasm, which I think has just radiated across the room. Hugh, over to you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Well, my first task, of course, is to invite everyone to join together in thanking our panellists for such a stimulating discussion.
Thank you.
Our next winter conversation is going to be on Friday the 4th of July. The topic is Courageous Women in the Arts, and the panellists will be Emma Fay, the Deputy Director of the Art Gallery, and Rachel Azzopardi, the co-founder of Illuminate Adelaide. This conversation is obviously timed to coincide both with the Dangerously Modern exhibition currently on at the gallery and with the start of Illuminate Adelaide, the Light Festival, which once again Government House will be taking part in. So we invite you to come back once the festival starts to see the lighting up of the house by a Spanish artist called Philip Roca. Bookings for that next conversation will open on the 16th June, and more information on the Government House website. Once again, thank you very much for coming. I hope you've enjoyed the event, and thank you to our panellists and Her Excellency for convening the event.
Pleasure. Thank you. All right. Good. Thank you both. Now look, it's entirely